Hi everyone, my name is Olivia Stroy, and this is my article analysis presentation. So, the first article that I wanted to discuss is Google Effects on Memory, Cognitive Consequences of Having Information at Our Fingertips. So, the question of this article is that the authors aim to investigate whether the internet, with its search engines and databases, has become a primary transactive memory source for humans. Specifically, they wanted to determine if the internet has become an external memory system that's automatically primed when people need new information. The authors drew upon the theory of transactive memory, which describes how groups of people share and access information. They hypothesized that the internet functions as a transactive memory system, similar to how people rely on each other for information within social groups. The primary hypothesis was that when faced with a knowledge gap, people are primed to think of using computers and the internet to find the answer, and that once information is accessed online, people prioritize remembering where to find it rather than the information itself. So essentially, the question being asked is, do we now remember where to find it online more than we remember what the information is? So, how it was addressed, the author conducted four experiments. For experiment number one, the method was that participants answered easy or hard trivia questions and then performed a modified Stroop task to measure reaction times to computer and non-computer related words. The independent variable was difficulty of trivia questions, easy versus hard, and the dependent variable was reaction time in the Stroop task. For cognitive construct, this experiment measured the accessibility of computer-related concepts in memory, indicating the need for information primes thoughts of computers. Experiment number two. The method is that participants read and typed trivia statements with varying instructions about whether the information would be saved or erased, and whether they should try to remember it. The independent variables are whether the computer would save or erase this information, and whether the participants were instructed to remember. The dependent variable is the recall of the trivia statements. And for cognitive construct, the experiment measured how the perceived ability of external information affects internal memory encoding. So for the next two experiments, experiment number three, the method is that participants read and typed trivia statements with information being saved generically, saved into specific folders, or erased. They were then given a recognition task. The independent variable is how the information was saved, whether generically in a folder or erased, and the dependent variable was the recognition accuracy for the statements and their storage locations. The cognitive construct for this is that the experiment examined memory for both the information and its location when the information was considered to be saved for later access. For experiment number four, the method is that participants read and typed trivia statements with the information saved to specific folders. They then performed a recall task for both the statements and the folder locations. The independent variable is that there was not one. All information was saved to the folders, and the dependent variables are the recall of the trivia statements and recall of the folder locations. The cognitive construct for experiment number four is that it was focused on the relative recall of information versus its location to test the hypothesis that where is prioritized. So, what was found from all of these four experiments? For experiment number one, computer-related words had higher interference and slower reaction times in the Stroop task after hard questions, showing that needing information primes thoughts of computers. Figure 1, which is shown in the article, showed the reaction time differences between general brand names and search engine brand names after easy and hard questions. For experiment number 2, participants who believed information was erased recalled more than those who believed it was saved, indicating that perceived external availability reduces internal encoding. For experimental number 3, participants had better memory for the information itself when they believed it was erased. Participants had better memory for whether the information was saved or erased than the information itself when saved. And participants had a hard time remembering what folder the information was saved into. For experiment number 4, participants showed folder locations better than the trivia statements themselves, and figure number 2, which was shown in the article, showed an if-then analysis, showing that participants often remembered the folder location even when they did not remember the trivia statement. So the interpretation of what this all means is that the results support the hypothesis that the internet does function as a transactive memory system, and that people adapt their memory processes to rely on external sources like the internet, prioritizing remembering where to find information rather than the information itself. The authors concluded that humans are becoming symbiotic with their computer tools, forming interconnected systems where knowing where to find information is just as important as knowing the information itself. It was also discussed how this reliance on technology has become like the reliance on other humans for information, and that losing internet access is like losing contact with a knowledgeable friend. Moving on to the second article I wanted to share. This one is The Mere Presence of a Cell Phone May Be Distracting, Implications for Attention and Task Performance. So, the question for this article was that it aimed to investigate whether the mere presence of a cell phone, even without active use, can be a source of distraction and negatively impact attention and task performance. The authors drew upon theories of attention, cognitive capacity, and social facilitation and innovation to explain how the presence of a cell phone might affect performance. They hypothesized that the mere presence of a cell phone could act as a distractor, similar to the presence of other people in social facilitation studies. The primary hypothesis was that the presence of a cell phone would lead to poor performance on tasks requiring attention and concentration, particularly on more complex tasks. So, how was this addressed? The authors conducted two different experiments. Study number one, the method is that participants completed two digit cancellation tasks, simple and additive, and two trail making tests, part A and part B, in the presence of either a cell phone or a notebook. The independent variable is the presence of a cell phone versus a notebook, and the dependent variable is the performance scores on the digit cancellation task. So the number of lines completed and cancellation score, and trail making test, the number of circles connected. The cognitive construct is that these tests measured attention, cognitive capacity, and executive functioning. For study number two, the method is that students in two statistics classes completed the same task as study one. One class had their cell phones on their desk, which was the experimental group, while the other class had no cell phones present, the control group. The independent variable is the presence of cell phones versus no cell phones, and the dependent variable is same as study one, and the cognitive construct is also the same as study one. So, what was found? For study one, there was no significant differences found on the sample digit cancellation or trail making test, part A. Participants in the cell phone condition performed slightly worse on the more challenging additive cancellation test and trail making test, part B. For study two, it basically replicated the findings of study one. There was no significant differences on the simple tasks, and participants in the cell phone condition performed significantly worse on the additive cancellation task and trail making test part B. So, for the interpretation of what this means, the results support the hypothesis that the mere presence of a cell phone can be a source of distraction and negatively impact performance on attention-demanding tasks. The authors suggest that a cell phone's presence may act as a reminder of a broader social network, leading to a distraction from the immediate task. They relate the findings to social facilitation/inhibition theories, suggesting that the cell phone's presence may create conflict between attending to the task and attending to the potential social connections represented by the phone. The authors conclude that the cell phone's presence can have unintended negative consequences for attention and performance, especially on complex tasks, and that this effect is not dependent on active cell phone use. So, both of these studies are very intertwined in the world of technology and how it relates to cognition, and these studies collectively demonstrate technology's significant influence on cognition. The internet's role as an external memory system alters information encoding, while the mere presence of mobile phones impairs attentional resources. Both findings of these two articles reveal that our cognitive processes are adapting to and being shaped by the constant presence of technology, highlighting the need to understand its impact on memory and attention. And yeah, thank you so much for watching.